I was standing in the middle of a high-end dealership showroom, my voice shaking with a mix of rage and pure exhaustion, screaming at a man who had essentially just stolen $30,000 from me. The worst part? He was smiling. He had that practiced corporate, I'm listening face on, while behind his eyes, I could see him calculating exactly how much more blood he could squeeze from the stone. How does a certified inspection report miss a literal hole in a car, or a front differential that's about to explode? And why was the service advisor, the person I trusted to handle my claim, sending photos of a completely different vehicle to my warranty company? I thought I was buying my dream car, a vehicle that represented all our hard work and a new chapter in our lives. Instead, I was walking into a calculated trap that would leave me stranded, broke, and facing a legal battle against a giant that didn't think I was smart enough to catch them in a lie. If you think your local dealership has your back because they have a big name on the sign, you need to hear this, because what we found hidden in their private service files changed everything. It all started back on December 3rd. You know that feeling when you finally find the one? Not a person, but a car. For us, it was a 2021 Ford Explorer ST. It was beautiful, blacked out, aggressive, with that perfect blend of utility and performance. We weren't just looking for a way to get from point A to point B. We wanted something we could be proud of. We headed down to the local AutoNation Ford, feeling that mix of nerves and excitement that always comes with a major purchase. We had been through the ringer with our first car, a total disaster where my partner had been taken advantage of. So this time, we were on high alert. Or at least, we thought we were. When we pulled onto the lot and saw the Explorer, it felt like fate. But looking back, the red flags weren't just waving, they were screaming. Before we even took it for a test drive, my partner, who's a mechanic and has an eye for things most people miss, noticed something weird. The sunroof had been crudely siliconed over. It looked like a DIY job gone wrong. We pointed it out to our sales rep, who immediately called over the sales manager, a guy we'll call Ray. Ray had that classic, trust me energy. He told us, with a completely straight face, that he was well aware of the sunroof. He claimed the service department had tried to repair it, but just couldn't get it right, so they siliconed it shut to prevent leaks. My partner questioned him immediately. The silicone looked old and sloppy, not like something a professional service department would do. But Ray was smooth. He told us the faulty sunroof had already been factored into the price, which made sense at the time because it was priced competitively with other STs on the lot. He even promised us that if we wanted to fix it ourselves later, he'd sell us the parts at cost. Since my partner could do the labor, we figured, hey, we don't really care about a sunroof anyway. It's a performance SUV. We let it slide. That was our first mistake, believing a salesman's word over our own eyes. There was one more hurdle before we could take it home. An open recall on a bolt in the rear differential. They told us we'd have to wait 2 or 3 days for them to swap it out. We agreed, signed the papers, and waited with bated breath. When the call finally came that it was ready, we were over the moon. We picked it up, feeling like royalty, and started the drive home. We were barely a few miles away when we heard a loud metallic thud. It was sudden and jarring, but the car seemed to keep driving fine. We looked at each other, confused, but figured maybe we just ran over some road debris. We got it into our driveway, stepped out to admire our new purchase, and my heart sank. The muffler on the right side was literally hanging off, having completely detached from the pipe. Most people would have turned around right then and demanded a refund. But we're car people. We brushed it off as a fluke, a 1 in a million bad weld. My partner took it to his shop the next day, put it up on a lift to weld the muffler back on, and that's when the fluke started looking more like a pattern. While he was under there, he noticed the flex pipes on the exhaust were cracked. Now, flex pipes crack. It happens. But on a certified pre-owned vehicle that just passed a rigorous inspection, it was suspicious. He also found that several small bolts were missing from the front shield, which explained a secondary rattling noise we'd been hearing. He fixed the bolts, welded the pipe, and we tried to stay positive. We loved the car after all, but the car didn't seem to love us back. A few days later, the driver's side mirror decided to quit. These mirrors are supposed to fold in and out automatically. Suddenly, ours would fold in when we parked, but it refused to fold back out when we started the engine. It would just flap loosely in the wind while I was driving, waving at people like a broken limb. It wasn't just annoying, it was a safety risk because it messed with the blind spot sensors and the cameras. I found myself sticking my hand out the window at stoplights to manually pull my mirror out on a car we were paying over $30,000 for after taxes and fees. I felt like a fool, but I kept telling myself it was just used car character. Then came January 1st, New Year's Day. A fresh start, right? Wrong. I walked out to the driveway to go to work, hit the ignition, and nothing. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree, throwing 1,000 different error codes at me, but the engine wouldn't even nudge. The car was a brick. We called AutoNation, and they wouldn't even authorize a tow. They claimed they weren't sure if our extended warranties covered it. My partner ended up jumping the car and nursing it to the dealership, where they told us the battery had gone bad, and of course, the warranty didn't cover accessories like batteries. We had to go out, buy a new one, and install it ourselves just to get the thing running again. At this point, the dream car was starting to feel like a nightmare. But the worst was still lurking deep inside the drivetrain, waiting for the weather to change. We had no idea that within weeks, the dealership would be trying to gaslight us into believing that a catastrophic mechanical failure was actually our fault, or that they had been lying to us from the very second we walked onto that lot. The honeymoon phase with our Explorer didn't even last 60 days. By mid-February, the new car smell had been replaced by the scent of anxiety. It was Wednesday, February 18th, when my partner was driving home and heard it for the first time. A faint, rhythmic sound, like something rotating that shouldn't be. It wasn't the loud, metallic bang of the muffler falling off. It was subtler, more sinister. A low-frequency hum that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. Being a mechanic, my partner knew that sound. It wasn't a loose shield or a rattling exhaust. It was the sound of something internal, something expensive. We didn't wait. He called the dealership immediately and set an appointment for Monday, February 23rd. In the days leading up to that appointment, the noise didn't go away. In fact, it grew. It became our constant passenger. We did our own research, scouring forums and technical bulletins, and every sign pointed to the same terrifying conclusion: the front differential. When Monday morning rolled around, we were at the service center at 9 a.m. sharp. We weren't just dropping it off. We came prepared with a diagnosis. We told the service advisor, a man we'll call Brian, exactly what we were hearing. We explained that the noise was most prominent around 45 miles per hour. My partner even asked them to check if the flex pipe repair we'd found earlier could be covered under the warranty, but he was crystal clear. That's not why we're here. The noise is the priority. We think it's the front differential or the transfer case. We checked our Veritas warranty paperwork. Sure enough, the front differential was listed right there in black and white as a covered component. We felt a small sense of relief. Surely this would be a simple fix. We'd leave it with the pros, they'd see the issue, the warranty would pay, and we'd get our car back. The rest of that Monday was silence. No calls, no updates. It wasn't until late that evening that the phone finally rang. It was Brian. And the second he started talking, I knew we were in trouble. "So," Brian said, his voice dripping with that kind of forced nonchalance people use when they're about to give you bad news. "What you're hearing is definitely the exhaust. The flex pipes are cracked." My heart sank. "Okay," I said. "But what about the grinding? What about the differential?" "Oh, we didn't hear anything like that," Brian countered. "The technician took it out and got it up to 90 miles per hour. If there was a noise, he would have heard it. It's just the exhaust. Now, those parts are on back order, and it's not covered under your warranty. It'll be about $1,200, and honestly, with the supply chain issues, we might not see those parts until next year." I was speechless. Next year? For an exhaust pipe? And more importantly, 90 miles per hour? Who tests a car for a low-speed vibration by driving it at nearly 100 miles per hour on a public road? I told him flat out, "You're not hearing the noise because you're going too fast. At 90, the wind and road noise drown out everything. You need to drive it at 45. It's faint, but it's there." I told him I'd be there the next morning. I wasn't going to let them just park my car in a lot and wait for a part that wouldn't even fix the problem. Tuesday morning, February 24th. Brian calls again before I even leave the house. "Yeah, we drove it again. Still don't hear a thing. But hey, do you want to move forward with that $1,200 exhaust repair?" I felt a surge of heat crawl up my neck. They were trying to upsell me on a repair I didn't want, for a problem that wasn't causing the noise, while completely ignoring the actual mechanical failure. "I'll be there at noon," I told him, my voice tight. "And I'm going to take the technician on a test drive myself." When I arrived at the AutoNation service center, I was met with the kind of condescension that every woman who has ever stepped foot in a mechanic shop knows all too well. They paired me with a technician who had been there for over 20 years. He looked at me like I was a child, telling him there was a monster under my bed. I tried to explain the mechanics of it, how the noise fluctuated with the speed of the front wheels, how it got worse going downhill when the load shifted, and how it was independent of the engine RPM. He barely looked at me. "It could be a shield," he muttered. "We already checked the shields," I said. "It's not a rattle. It's a rotational grind." "Maybe a loose bolt," he suggested, staring out the window. "I'm telling you, it's coming from the front differential," I insisted for the 10th time. He sighed, the universal sound of a man who thinks he's being patient with a difficult woman. "It could be the transmission. I'll have the transmission guy take a drive with you." The transmission specialist was a younger guy, and thank God, he actually seemed to have his ears open. I got behind the wheel, pulled out onto the road, and held it steady at 40 miles per hour. The hum started. It was unmistakable. I looked at him. "Do you hear that?" He listened for a beat, then nodded. "Yeah, that sounds like the front diff." I wanted to scream, "I told you so," at the top of my lungs. Finally, someone was listening. He even asked me if I had been hearing creaking when I turned the wheel, which I had, but I hadn't even realized it was related. He confirmed it. The front differential was failing. We headed back to the shop, and for a fleeting moment, I thought the nightmare was over. They said they would contact the warranty company, get the approval, and get us back on the road. Brian told us he'd give us an update as soon as he heard back. And that's when the AutoNation silence began. Every single communication from that point forward was a battle. We would call, and Brian would be on break. We would leave a message, and he'd never call back. We'd be promised an update first thing in the morning, and then we'd sit by the phone until 5 p.m. with nothing but dial tone. It was like we were being ghosted by a multi-million-dollar corporation. By Thursday, February 26th, we finally cornered him. Brian told us the warranty company hadn't responded yet. Fine. We waited through the weekend. Monday, March 2nd rolls around. We call again. "Oh," Brian says, sounding completely unfazed. "I actually can't find your paperwork. I'm going to have to resubmit everything to the warranty company today." He had lost the paperwork for a $4,000 plus repair. After a week of us calling him every single day, I felt like I was losing my mind. But the real blow was yet to come. Tuesday, March 3rd. Brian tells us the warranty company wants proof. They want him to drain the front differential fluid into a clear water bottle and take pictures of it to check for metal shavings or contamination before they'll approve the claim. Wednesday, March 4th. The phone finally rings. It's Brian. "Yeah, so the warranty company denied the claim. They said the front differential seals failed, and according to your policy, seals are an excluded item. Since the seal failure led to the differential failure, they aren't paying a dime. It's going to be $4,500 to replace the unit." I felt the blood drain from my face. $4,500. We hadn't even owned the car for 90 days. We hadn't even made our third payment. And then, Brian dropped the detail that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. The transmission guy says these units aren't even serviceable. You can't just fix the seal. You have to replace the whole thing. My partner called the warranty company directly, hoping for a mistake. But the person on the other end of the line said something that shifted the entire situation from bad luck to fraud. They told him, "Look, there's no way a front differential leaks out all of its fluid and destroys itself in less than 90 days without there being a pre-existing issue. You need to talk to your dealership. They sold you a car with a leaking front differential." Everything clicked. The certified inspection, Ray's story about the sunroof, the missing bolts, the muffler falling off on day one. We hadn't bought a dream car. We had bought a ticking time bomb that Ray and his team had painted black and sold to us with a smile. And when my partner went back to that dealership to demand the original inspection paperwork, what he found inside that folder wasn't just a mistake. It was a smoking gun. When my partner walked into that dealership on Wednesday afternoon, he wasn't looking for a fight. He was looking for the truth. He walked straight past the shiny new cars in the showroom, past the smell of expensive coffee and floor wax, and headed for the service desk. He didn't want to talk to Brian. He wanted the one thing they couldn't lie about: the paperwork. He requested the original used vehicle inspection form, the document they use to certify that a car is safe and ready for the lot. This is the paper that's supposed to give a buyer peace of mind. It's the dealership's word in writing. When he finally got his hands on it, he felt a cold chill run down his spine. He started scrolling through the rows of green check marks. Everything, and I mean everything, was marked as fully functional. He looked at the line for the sunroof. Check mark. Passed. Remember Ray, the sales manager who stood there and told us to our faces that he knew the sunroof was broken? The man who told us that the service department had tried and failed to fix it, which was why it was silicone shut? On the official inspection report, the one that's supposed to be filed with the state and the manufacturer, it was listed as perfect. He kept looking. The driver's side mirror? Passed. The battery? Passed. The exhaust system? Passed. The front differential? Passed. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a complete fabrication. Either the technician who did the inspection was blind, or someone had sat in an office and checked those boxes without ever even looking at the car. My partner, being the mechanic he is, started circling everything. He noted the differential, the mirrors, the exhaust, the chipped windshield, the dead battery. He turned that clean report into a map of their lies. He was beyond angry now. He felt trapped. We couldn't afford a surprise $4,500 repair on a car we just bought. And we couldn't drive a car that was actively eating its own gears. He went back to Ray. Ray, ever the professional, didn't even blink when he saw the circled report. He didn't apologize. He didn't offer to fix it for free. Instead, he did what every shark does when they've cornered their prey. He offered us a way out. "Look," Ray said, leaning back in his chair, "I can't just eat the cost of that repair. But here's what I can do. I'll give you $20,000 for the Explorer as a trade-in. And because of everything you've been through, I'll give you a $5,000 over allowance. That puts you at $25,000 toward a brand new car. We get you out of the headache, and you get a fresh start with a full warranty." $25,000. It was still less than we paid, but it felt like a lifeline. We were exhausted. We just wanted the nightmare to end. We told him we needed to think about it. We walked back to the service department to grab our keys and head over to the Honda dealership next door, just to see if they could beat the deal. But as we were walking out, the service manager, the guy who sits above Brian, stopped us. He looked stressed. "Wait," he said, pulling us aside. "I've been looking into your case. I just found out why the warranty company denied your claim." We already knew why, the seals. But he shook his head. "No, it's worse than that. Brian, he submitted the wrong paperwork. And the photos? The photos he sent to the warranty company to prove the damage? They weren't even of your car. They were of a completely different vehicle." I felt like the ground had just dropped out from under me. Our claim wasn't just denied because of a technicality. It was denied because the person handling it was either so incompetent he couldn't tell two cars apart, or he was actively trying to sabotage the claim so we'd be forced to pay out of pocket. A service manager seemed genuinely embarrassed. "I'm taking over this case personally," he promised. "I'm going to call the warranty company myself. I'm going to pressure them to approve the repairs because of the mess up on our end. Just give me 24 to 48 hours. Have some patience and let me try to make this right." A glimmer of hope. Maybe the Explorer could be saved. Maybe we wouldn't have to trade it in and lose thousands of dollars. We went back to Ray's office. "Ray," I said, "the service manager says he might be able to get this covered. But if he can't, we'll take your $25,000 trade-in deal. Can you put that offer in writing for us, just so we have it?" Ray's smile didn't reach his eyes this time. "I don't need to put it in writing," he said, his voice turning cold. "You have my word. If you come back here to trade it in, I will honor that deal. I'm a man of my word." His word. The same word he gave us about the sunroof. The same word that was currently contradicted by his own inspection reports. We didn't have a choice. We left, clutching onto the hope that the service manager would pull a miracle out of his hat. Friday, March 6th. We call for an update. "Still waiting on the warranty company," they say. "We'll call you in the morning." Saturday, March 7th. No call. Silence. Monday, March 9th. We're done waiting. We call at noon. Brian answers, of course. "The manager is on lunch," he says. "I'll leave a message for him to call you back the second he gets in." 1 o'clock. 2 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Nothing. We call back at 3:15 p.m. "Oh, he's in a meeting now," the receptionist tells us. "I'll hold," my partner says. "He might be a while," she says. "Would you like a call back?" "No," he says, his voice like iron. "I will hold." He sat on that phone for 30 minutes, listening to the hold music, while I paced the living room. Finally, the service manager picked up. The news was exactly what we feared. "They denied it again," he said, sounding defeated. "There's nothing else I can do. The warranty company is standing firm. The seal is the cause, and they won't cover it." That was it. The end of the road. We both left work early, driving in separate cars to the dealership. We were going to take Ray's deal. We were going to give up our beautiful, blacked-out Explorer ST and just get something, anything, that worked. We walked into Ray's office, ready to sign the papers for the $25,000 trade-in. Ray looked up from his desk, clicked his pen, and said, "All right, I can give you $21,000 for the Explorer." I felt the air leave the room. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice rising. "No, absolutely not. You told us $25,000. You said you'd give us $20 plus the $5,000 allowance." Ray didn't even look at me. He just shrugged. "I never said 25. I said I'd try to get you to 25. The market has shifted. 21 is the best I can do." I lost it. I didn't care who was watching. "You are lying," I screamed. "You told us 25. If you tell anyone else anything different, you are a liar. Just like you lied to us about the sunroof, and just like your tech lied on the inspection form." The showroom went dead silent. Sales reps were peeking over their cubicles. Ray didn't flinch. He just sent a sales rep over to talk to us. After 10 minutes of back and forth, the rep came back and said, "Okay, Ray says he can do 24,000. That's his final offer." We were beaten, $1,000 less than promised, but we were drowning. We bit our tongues. We said, "Fine." "Great," the rep said. "Lead us toward the new car lot. Now, let's see what we can get you into." I was thinking maybe a Bronco, something with a little personality. But as we walked, the reality of the deal started to set in. "Oh," the rep said, checking his tablet. "Actually, because of the rebates we're using to make the numbers work, you can't get a Bronco, and you can't get a truck." "Then what can we get?" I asked. He pointed toward a row of cars at the back of the lot. "Your only options are the Bronco Sport or the Ford Escape Active." I looked at the Escape. It was white. It was bland. It looked like a motorized marshmallow. It was the ultimate soccer mom car. My beautiful, powerful, aggressive Explorer was being traded for this. God help me, I whispered. I felt like I was being punished for a crime I didn't commit. We were being funneled into a car we hated by a man who had lied to us, using a deal that was shrinking by the hour. But as I stood there looking at that white Escape, a thought started to itch at the back of my brain. Why were they pushing us so hard into this specific car? And what would happen if I stopped playing their game and started looking at the legal definitions of fraud and unconscionable contracts? I stood there, staring at the Ford Escape Active, and I felt a physical weight settling on my chest. It wasn't just a car. It was a white, sterile reminder of our defeat. If the Explorer ST was a statement of our ambition and our taste, this Escape was a surrender flag. It was a soccer mom car in the worst sense. Practical, bland, and utterly devoid of soul. It looked like a generic refrigerator on wheels. And the fact that they were telling me it was our only option felt like the final turn of the screw. Why just the Escape? I asked the sales rep, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. We were looking at Broncos. We were looking at trucks. You're telling me that in this entire multi-million-dollar inventory, the only thing you can put us in is a white Escape? The rep gave me that rehearsed, sympathetic tilt of the head. It's about the rebates, ma'am. To get you to that $24,000 trade-in value on a car with a blown differential, we have to lean heavily on the manufacturer incentives. Ford has massive rebates on the Escape right now. Without those, the numbers just don't work. You'd be buried in negative equity from your previous loan, and no bank is going to touch that. It was a trap. A mathematical, high-pressure trap. They had us exactly where they wanted us. We couldn't drive the Explorer because it was a safety hazard and a financial drain. We couldn't afford the $4,500 repair out of pocket, and now, they were using our desperation to move a piece of inventory that they probably couldn't get rid of otherwise. I looked over at my partner. He was quiet, but I could see the muscles in his jaw working. He's a mechanic. He spends his life fixing things, making them run right, understanding the how and why of machinery. To him, this wasn't just a bad deal. It was an insult to his intelligence. He knew exactly what was happening. He knew that the front differential didn't just fail because of a seal. He knew it had been leaking since before we signed the first contract. He knew that Ray's word was worth less than the silicone on that sunroof. "Let's walk away," he whispered to me, leaning in close so the rep couldn't hear. "And do what?" I whispered back. "We still owe 26 grand on a car that doesn't drive. We have to get to work. We have to live." That's the leverage they use. They don't just sell you a car. They sell you your own survival. They know you need to get to your job to pay for the car they're selling you. It's a closed loop, and we were spinning right in the middle of it. We walked back into the showroom to discuss our options one last time. The air conditioning was humming, and the smell of new leather was sickeningly sweet. I saw Ray through his glass office wall. He was on the phone, laughing at something, looking completely unbothered by the fact that he was currently dismantling our lives. I thought about our first car. My partner had gone into a dealership years ago, before we were together, and he'd been eaten alive. He bought a 20-year-old car for $12,000 at a 28% interest rate. It was a predatory loan, pure and simple. He was gullible then, and the salesman knew it. We had spent years digging out of that hole. We had promised ourselves, never again. We were supposed to be smarter this time. We had done the research. We had the mechanic on our side. And yet, here we were, standing in an AutoNation, being bullied into a white Ford Escape, like we were children who didn't know how to add. The sales rep laid out the paperwork for the Escape. "If we do this today," he said, tapping a pen on the desk, "we can wipe the slate clean. No more service calls, no more waiting for Brian, no more worrying about the differential. You drive off in a brand new car with 0 miles and a full factory warranty. Isn't that what you want? Peace of mind?" Peace of mind. It's the ultimate sales pitch. But as I looked at the contract, my eyes kept drifting back to that used vehicle inspection form my partner had circled in red. I kept thinking about the sunroof. "Ray," I called out, not caring that I was interrupting his phone call. He looked up, surprised, and hung up the phone. He stepped out of his office, his hands in his pockets. "Yes?" he said, that oily smile returning. "The sunroof," I said, pointing at the inspection form. "You told us you knew it was broken. You said the service department tried to fix it and failed. But on this form, the one your tech signed, it says passed. It says it's perfectly functional." Ray didn't even blink. "Well, you know how it is. Sometimes the techs just check the box if it's not a safety issue." "But you told us the price was lower because of the sunroof," I countered. "If the inspection says it's fine, then the price should have been for a car with a working sunroof. Which means you lied about the pricing, or your tech committed fraud on a legal document. Which is it, Ray?" The smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "I think you're overthinking this. We're trying to help you out here. We're giving you $24,000 for a broken car." "You're giving us $24,000 for a car you sold us broken," I snapped. "You're not helping us. You're trying to cover your tracks by rolling us into a new loan so we can't sue you for the old one." The room went quiet. The other customers were staring now. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. I realized in that moment that this wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about the fact that they thought they could do this to people. They thought they could sell a certified car with a failing differential, missing bolts, and a silicone shut sunroof, and then just rebate their way out of the consequences. I looked at the Escape one last time. It looked like a tombstone for our dignity. "We aren't signing anything today," I said, grabbing my purse. The sales rep looked panicked. Wait. If you leave now, the rebates might change by tomorrow. I can't guarantee this deal stays on the table." "Good," I said, "because I don't want your deal. I want the car I paid for to be the car I was promised." We walked out of that dealership, leaving the keys to the Explorer on the desk. We didn't have a plan. We didn't know how we were going to get to work the next day. But as we stepped out into the humid air of the parking lot, I felt a strange sense of clarity. My partner looked at me, his eyes wide. "What are we going to do?" "We're going to do what they don't expect," I said. "We're going to stop being polite customers who are afraid of a bad credit score, and we're going to start being the nightmare they created. We have the inspection form. We have the proof of the wrong photos being sent to the warranty company. We have the testimony of the transmission guy who said it was pre-existing. We aren't buying an Escape. We're going to war." But as we drove away in my partner's old work truck, the weight of the reality started to sink back in. AutoNation is a multi-billion-dollar company. They have teams of lawyers. They have thousands of pages of fine print designed to protect them from people like us. I was a woman with a mountain of debt and a broken SUV. They were a corporate titan. How do you even begin to fight someone who can afford to lose $1 million more than you can afford to lose 100? I sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the passing lights, wondering if I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. Was it better to be a soccer mom in a white Escape, or a person with principles who was about to go bankrupt? The drive home that night was the loudest silence I've ever experienced. The hum of my partner's old work truck felt like a mocking reminder of the smooth, powerful ride of the Explorer we had just abandoned on a dealership lot. We didn't talk. We couldn't. Every time I opened my mouth, I felt like I was going to either scream or burst into tears, and I didn't have the energy for either. We had walked away from the deal. We had stood our ground. But standing your ground feels a lot like sinking when you realize you're standing in quicksand. The next morning, the reality hit like a physical blow. I woke up at 6 a.m., my hand instinctively reaching for the keys to a car that wasn't in the driveway. I looked out the window at the empty space where the Explorer should have been. Instead, there was just a patch of oil on the concrete, a dark, greasy stain from the front differential that Ray swore was perfectly functional. We had to share the truck. That meant a 2-hour round trip for my partner just to drop me off at my job before heading to his shop. Every mile we drove was a mile spent overanalyzing every word Ray had said, every smirk Brian had given us, and every box checked on that fraudulent inspection form. "We need to call the corporate office," my partner said, his voice gravelly from lack of sleep. AutoNation isn't just this one dealership, it's a massive chain. There has to be a compliance department. There has to be someone who cares that a sales manager is lying about safety inspections. He was right. We spent my lunch break on the phone, bouncing from one automated menu to another, being put on hold for 40 minutes at a time. It's a specialized kind of torture, listening to upbeat corporate, "we value your business" music, while your life is falling apart because of that very business. Finally, we got through to a regional representative. I laid it all out. I told her about the siliconed sunroof. I told her about the muffler falling off on day one. I told her about the dead battery, the cracked flex pipes, and the missing bolts. But most importantly, I told her about the mistake. The service advisor Brian submitted photos of a different car to our warranty company, I said, my voice shaking. Our claim was denied based on fraudulent documentation, and when we pointed it out, the sales manager tried to pressure us into a new loan for a car we didn't want, using a trade-in value that he changed 3 times in 1 hour. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. For a second, I thought we had finally found our ally. "I understand your frustration," the representative said, in a voice that was perfectly modulated and entirely empty of emotion. "I will open a case file for you. I'll reach out to the general manager at that location and get their side of the story. You should hear back from us in 3 to 5 business days." 3 to 5 business days. In corporate speak, that's an eternity. It's a way to let the fire die down. They wanted us to get tired. They wanted us to get desperate enough to take the white escape just so we could have a way to get to the grocery store. But they didn't count on one thing. My partner is a mechanic. And mechanics don't just look at what's on the surface. They look at the bones. That evening, he went back to the dealership. Not to talk to Ray, and definitely not to talk to Brian. He went to the service bay. He waited until the transmission guy, the young kid who had actually been honest with us, came out for a cigarette break. "Hey," my partner said, walking up to him. "I'm the guy with the black Explorer, the one with the blown diff." The kid looked around nervously, then took a long drag of his cigarette. "Man, I'm sorry about all that. That's a mess." "I need to know the truth," my partner said. "Did you see the leak when it first came in for the recall? When they were doing the certified inspection?" The kid looked at the ground, kicking a pebble. "Look, I'm not supposed to say anything, but that car, it didn't just start leaking. When we had it up for the rear diff bolt recall, I noticed the front was wet. I mentioned it to Brian. He told me to just wipe it down and focus on the recall work. Said the used car guys had already signed off on it and he wasn't going to open a new can of worms." My partner felt the blood in his veins turn to ice. "He told you to wipe it down?" "Yeah, happens more than you'd think. If the car is already sold or about to be, they just want it off the lot. They figure the customer will either not notice or the warranty will pick it up later. But then the warranty company got weird because of the seal exclusion, and Brian panicked. That's why he sent the other photos. He was trying to show internal failure without showing the external leak, but he didn't have a clean shot of your car. So he used a file photo from another Explorer they'd fixed a month ago. It was a confession. It was the smoking gun. It wasn't just incompetence. It was a deliberate, multi-layered conspiracy to commit insurance fraud and consumer fraud. They had sold us a car they knew was broken, instructed a technician to hide the evidence, and then tried to trick a third-party warranty company into paying for it using fake photos. When that failed, they tried to trap us in a new, high-interest loan. My partner thanked the kid and walked back to the truck. He called me immediately. "We don't need Ray," he told me, "and we don't need the regional rep. We need the general manager, and we need to tell him that we know about the wipe down. We need to tell him we know about the file photos." We didn't wait for the 3 to 5 business days. We showed up the next morning at 8 a.m. We didn't go to the sales floor. We went straight to the administrative offices and demanded to see the general manager. A woman in a sharp suit tried to block us. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said, stepping forward. "But we have a folder full of evidence regarding internal fraud and a certified inspection that was falsified. Does the GM want to discuss it with us, or should we just take it to the state licensing board in the local news? The local news is the magic phrase in the car business. No dealership wants a 7 on your side segment featuring a crying couple and a broken SUV. Within 2 minutes, we were sitting in a large mahogany-trimmed office. The GM was a man who looked like he had been born in a golf shirt. He was polished, tan, and very, very concerned. Now, let's start from the beginning, he said, folding his hands on his desk. We didn't just tell the story this time. We performed it. We showed him the inspection form. We showed him the dates. We told him exactly what the technician had said about being told to wipe down the leak. We told him about Brian's fake photos. And then I looked him dead in the eye. Ray told us he'd give us $25,000 for the car, then dropped it to $21,000, then settled on $24,000, I said. But the truth is, you shouldn't be buying this car back at all. You should be fixing it for free because you sold it to us under false pretenses. You committed fraud on the inspection, and your service department attempted insurance fraud with the warranty company. The GM didn't move. He didn't defend Ray. He didn't defend Brian. He just stared at the paperwork in front of him. I could see the gears turning. He was weighing the cost of a $4,500 repair against the cost of a lawsuit and a PR disaster. I was not aware of the photo situation, the GM said slowly. If what you're saying is true, that is a serious violation of our company policy. Brian is he's been with us a long time, but that is unacceptable. It's more than unacceptable, my partner added. It's illegal, and Ray knew. He stood there and lied about the sunroof. He knew that car was a lemon from the day it hit the lot. The GM leaned back. Here is what I am going to do. I need 2 hours. I need to pull the digital files for your service records. I need to speak with the technician and Brian. I want you two to go grab some breakfast. On me. He slid a $20 bill across the desk. It felt like a bribe, but we took it. We were starving. We sat in a diner down the street, picking at eggs we couldn't taste. This was it, the final stand. In 2 hours, we would either have a fixed car, or we would be calling a lawyer to start a process that could take years. Do you think he'll do it? I asked. He has to, my partner said. If he doesn't, he's basically admitting he's part of it. He's the GM. The buck stops with him. If this goes to court, his name is the one on the top of the complaint. The 2 hours felt like 20. When we walked back into that dealership, the atmosphere had changed. The sales reps weren't looking at us anymore. They were looking at the floor. Ray was nowhere to be seen. Brian's desk was empty. We walked into the GM's office. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked like a man who had just had a very unpleasant morning. Well, he said, clearing his throat, I've completed my internal review, and it appears there were some discrepancies in how your case was handled. Discrepancies? I asked, my eyebrow raised. Let's not mince words, he said, sighing. The repair on the front differential will be covered, in full, by the dealership. We will not be going through your warranty company. We will handle the parts and labor internally. Additionally, I've instructed the service department to replace the driver's side mirror, fix the flex pipes, and properly repair the sunroof. No more silicone. We're going to make the car right. The car you thought you were buying in December? That's the car you're going to have by next week. I felt a wave of relief so strong, I almost fell over. We had won. We had actually won. But then, the GM added one more thing. However, he said, his voice dropping an octave, I'm going to need you to sign a release. A document stating that this settlement resolves all your claims against AutoNation and that you will not pursue further legal action or public statements regarding this matter. The gag order. He was willing to fix the car, but only if we promised to stay quiet about the wipe down and the fake photos. I looked at my partner. We had the Explorer fixed. We had our lives back. But if we signed that paper, Ray stayed in his office. Brian maybe got a slap on the wrist. And the next person who walked onto that lot, the next gullible kid or difficult woman, would be walking right into the same trap we did. I looked at the pen on the desk. I looked at the GM. And then I thought about that white Ford Escape. The silence in the room was heavy, thick with the smell of expensive cologne and the unspoken threat hanging between us. The general manager, let's call him Mr. Sterling, pushed a 3-page document across the mahogany desk. It looked harmless enough, just crisp white paper with a lot of standard-looking legal eyes, but I knew exactly what it was. It was a muzzle. Just a standard release, Sterling said, his voice as smooth as a new transmission. It protects the dealership's reputation, and in exchange, we make your problems disappear. We'll get the Explorer back in the shop today. We'll overnight the parts. You'll have a loaner car, a brand new F-150, fully loaded, until yours is perfect. No charge. I looked at the document. Confidential settlement and release of all claims. It was a gag order in everything but name. If I signed this, I could never tell this story. I could never warn anyone about Ray's silicone sunroof speech. I could never mention Brian's fake photos or the wipe-down order. If I even posted a negative review on Google, they could technically come after me for the cost of the repairs. I looked at my partner. I could see the exhaustion etched into his face. He had been working double shifts, then driving me across town in a cramped work truck, then spending his nights researching legal precedents. He just wanted his car back. He wanted to be able to drive to work without hearing a grinding noise that sounded like his bank account being shredded. "Can we have a minute?" I asked. Sterling nodded, checked his gold watch, and stepped out, closing the heavy door behind him with a soft click. The second he was gone, my partner let out a breath he'd been holding for an hour. "Honey, $4,500 for the diff? Probably another $1,000 for the mirror and the flex pipes, and whatever it costs to actually fix a sunroof that's been silicone shut. We're looking at over $6,000 in free repairs, plus a loaner. We can't afford not to sign this." "I know," I whispered, my heart hammering. "But it feels like we're letting them win. If we sign this, Ray is still out there. He's going to do this to the next person who walks in here looking for a family car. He's going to see another gullible couple, and he's going to sell them another lemon because he knows AutoNation will just buy their silence if they get caught." "But we aren't the police," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "We're just people trying to make a car payment. We can't fix the whole world, but we can fix our car." I looked out the window of the office. From this height, the dealership lot looked like a sea of shiny metal. Rows and rows of dreams waiting to be sold. Somewhere out there was our black Explorer, sitting in a dark service bay, broken and neglected. I thought about the first day we saw it, the excitement, the pride. I realized that by fighting them, I had let the dealership turn my dream car into a source of pure misery. I hated the car now. I hated the smell of the leather because it reminded me of Brian's lies. I hated the sight of the Ford logo because it reminded me of Ray's smirk. "I want to see the service records," I said suddenly. "What?" my partner asked. "If we're going to sign our lives away, I want to know what happened to Brian and Ray. I want to know if there's any accountability at all." When Sterling walked back in, I didn't reach for the pen. I leaned back. "We'll sign," I said, "on 2 conditions. First, I want a 5-year, 100,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty on that Explorer, paid for by the dealership. No more seal exclusions, no more accessory loopholes. If a light bulb flickers, I want you to fix it." Sterling frowned. "That's a significant added cost." "So is a lawsuit for consumer fraud," I countered. "And second, I want to know what the disciplinary action is for the people who falsified our records." Sterling sighed, the mask of the friendly golfer slipping just a little. "Brian has been placed on indefinite administrative leave pending a full internal audit of his files. To be blunt, it's unlikely he will return to this location. As for Ray is a sales manager. Sales is a different animal, but he has been re-educated on our inspection protocols." Re-educated. That was corporate speak for, we told him to be more careful about who he lies to. It wasn't just this, but it was a crack in the armor. And the warranty? I pressed. Sterling looked at the release form, then at me. He knew I was one phone call away from the local news. Fine. A 5-year platinum powertrain and electronics warranty. It'll be in the final paperwork. My partner and I looked at each other. This was the best deal we were ever going to get. We were the little guys who had gone up against a giant, and instead of being crushed, we had walked away with everything we asked for, and then some. I picked up the pen. It felt heavy. I thought about the thousands of people who walk into dealerships every day and just take the salesman's word. I thought about the people who get stuck with the white escape because they don't know how to fight back. I signed my name in a sharp, jagged scrawl. My partner did the same. Sterling took the papers, gave us a curt nod, and handed us the keys to a brand new charcoal gray F-150. Your Explorer will be ready on Friday. We'll call you. As we walked out of the office, we passed the sales floor. Ray was standing by the coffee station, talking to a young couple. They looked like they were in their early 20s. The guy was looking at a truck, and the girl was holding a baby. Ray was smiling, his hands moving animatedly as he described the amazing reliability of the Ford brand. He saw us. Our eyes met for a split second. The smile didn't leave his face, but his eyes went cold. He knew we had won. He knew we had cost his department thousands of dollars and gotten his service advisor fired. But he also knew we couldn't say a word. He went right back to his pitch, and as the door to the dealership swung shut behind us, I felt a pang of guilt for that young couple. The next few days were a blur. Driving the F-150 was a bittersweet experience. It was a beautiful truck, but every time I sat in it, I felt like I was in a golden cage. I was waiting for the Friday call. I was half convinced they would find another way to screw us over. Maybe they'd use used parts. Maybe they'd forget to fix the sunroof. Friday arrived. No call by noon. My anxiety was through the roof. I called the service center, and for the first time in months, someone actually answered on the second ring. Oh yes, the Explorer ST? It's just coming off the detail rack now. Mr. Sterling personally inspected it. You can come by whenever you're ready. When we pulled into the lot, there it was. It was parked right in front of the showroom, gleaming under the sun. They had detailed it inside and out. It looked better than the day we bought it. My partner didn't even go inside to get the keys first. He went straight to the front of the car and dropped to his knees, crawling underneath it with the flashlight he'd brought from home. I stood there watching him as the sales reps watched us from behind the glass. 10 minutes later, he stood up, wiping grease off his forehead. He had a grin on his face, a real one. New diff, new seals, new flex pipes. They even replaced the mounting brackets. It's perfect. We went inside, signed the final delivery paperwork, and collected our new warranty documents. Sterling didn't come out to greet us. We were handled by a new service advisor, a woman who was polite, efficient, and clearly terrified of making a mistake. As I climbed into the driver's seat of the Explorer, I reached up and touched the sunroof. It wasn't siliconed. It was a new assembly, flush with the roof, looking exactly as it should. I pressed the button and it slid open with a soft, mechanical whir. I looked up at the blue sky and took a deep breath. We drove off that lot for the last time, the engine purring, the front end silent as a grave. We had our car, we had our warranty. But as I looked in the rearview mirror at the AutoNation sign fading into the distance, I realized that the most important thing we had wasn't the car. It was the knowledge that we hadn't let them break us. Dealerships like this thrive on the hustle. They rely on the fact that most people are too busy, too tired, or too intimidated to read the fine print or challenge the manager. They count on your silence. And while I had to sign that paper to save my family's finances, I'm telling you this now because the only way to stop the Rays and Bryans of the world is to be the customer they're afraid of. If you're sitting in a dealership right now and something feels off, if the certified report doesn't match what you see with your own eyes, or if the manager starts changing the numbers the second you ask a hard question, walk away. Your dream car isn't worth a 5-year nightmare. And if you're already in the nightmare, don't stop fighting. Call corporate, demand the records, and never, ever let them tell you that you're just overthinking it. So I have to ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have signed that gag order to get the car fixed? Or would you have taken them to court just to make sure the world knew what they were doing? Let me know in the comments. Your stories might just help the next person avoid the trap we fell into. And if you want to hear more stories of people taking on the system and winning, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We kept the Explorer for another 3 years. It never missed a beat. Every time I saw a white Ford Escape on the road, I'd give my steering wheel a little pat and think about the bullet we dodged. We eventually sold it for a great price, mostly because of that platinum warranty we'd forced them to give us. But I never did go back to an AutoNation. Some lessons you only need to learn once.